I'm a football coach, so you got to be passionate about the game you're coaching. So, I mean, let me tell you, if you and I are going to go out in a parking lot and shoot marbles, I'm going to try to beat you into submission. So I have competitive fire, and I want to win, and I want to win all the time. So I don't think you can do this and not have that. Now, that doesn't always serve me well because like when we play card game, like we play a partner card game like spades or whatever, and my wife's not counting cards, like I'll throw the cards across the room and then get reprimanded later because she's like, "Why do you got to be such a jerk?" And she doesn't say jerk, okay? And I'm like, "I'm just telling you that if we're going to play, I expect you to be counting cards." Okay? Like I don't play for fun. I play to win. And it's fun when you win. Okay? So that's where it all starts. Now, the other thing is I read a book by Ray Kroc, the guy who owned the Padres and McDonald's. And I have little things I've taken from everything I've consumed. And he said, if you're green, there's room to grow, but if you're ripe, all you can do is rot. Okay. I still will tell you at college football season number 43, I am still reinventing myself. And like I'm going to do a drill Sunday 2 days from now that I've never done before. Okay. And I have some things that I've been doing for 30 years. But I always feel like there's a better answer out there, and I'm always in search of it.
Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you.
Hey,
what's up, Coach?
How you doing?
It's good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm good to see you too.
Man, thanks for making this work, Coach. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. I'm glad to do it.
Awesome.
So yeah, I got my laptop right here. Nobody's in the office. Everybody's out on the road. So I'm clean, good to go. Y'all loading hay, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had a guy come knocking the office door wanting a big hay bale for his horses, and so I just loaded up, got the tractor out and loaded them up. So
yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, I got that same sickness. I got horses too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
How many horses do you have?
3.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ride quite a bit?
Well, I'm lucky I got a daughter who can keep them legged up. So
okay.
College football and team roping don't seem to mix real well, but I make it work.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. Eddie is just a little bit into some team roping and rodeo, and
he's into it, but he doesn't ever climb on that hairy bag of fear. I'm like, you're the guy that's really sick. At least I get on my horse. All you do is hemorrhage money for those kids. I'm like, Eddie, you're too good a guy. Your kids are never going to work.
That's right.
He goes, why do you think I didn't cover my arena? He goes, they would never work.
That's right. Oh, that's great. So, Coach, tell me, how did you?
So are we recording this right now?
Yes, sir. We're
good. Yeah,
we're rocking. How did you get into coaching?
Oh, I'll tell you, I'm probably a bad guy to interview because if you ask me what time it is, I'll tell you how to build a watch. Okay. I never ever wanted to do anything else. Okay.
Wow.
And so I tell this story that is a true story. When I was in 3rd grade, that's how it starts. I was in gym class, and the PE teacher's name was Mr. Mason. Okay. And, in 3rd grade, you go down for your period of physical education, and then you line up and you wait to go back to your class, or you wait to go back to prison, and I remember asking him, Mr. Mason, how did you get to be the gym teacher? And I remember his response was, well, I went to college and then I shut down. I go, wait, you had to go to college to do this? Like, who doesn't know how to play games? My point was, I go home and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I know what I want to be. And she said, what? I go, I want to be the gym teacher. She's like,
Wow.
really?
In
Why?
third
I
grade.
go, third grade. I go, I can't imagine a better job, Mom. Like, this guy gets to play games with kids all day long. I go, I look forward to that one period once a week. He gets to do it all day, every day. Okay. And so I never forgot it. And when you're a kid, you don't know what people do for a living. You don't see people work, but you see teachers, you see firemen, you see athletes. And I'm like, so pretty much when I was in high school, I asked my high school coach, I was like, what does a guy do to get to coach? And he's like, really, it's a passion for all of us and, blah, blah, blah. And so I hung out with the high school coaches. And then when I was in college, I would go in, everybody else would go out Saturday night after the games. I would go in and grade the tape. And so essentially, I've never had anything in my mind my whole life other than coaching. It's just,
Wow.
but whether so basically, when people ask me what do I do for a living, like when you're on an airplane, I don't really want to tell people what I do because then the whole conversation is going to be about me the rest of the time. So, so they say, what do you do? And I go, I'm PE teacher. Oh, really? What grade level? I go, yeah, pretty much all ages. And oh, no kidding. And then I can take a nap. Okay. And so but basically all I tell people is I'm a highly compensated PE teacher. And it's all I am. It's all I've ever wanted to be.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What does it take to be a good football coach?
Oh, well, in the court of a public opinion known as Twitter and Instagram, there's varying reports out there as to how good I am or anybody else is. Because on every given Saturday, we're America's idiots. Okay. But one of the things that I've been teaching our team this past week, when you do this thing, you don't play based on the scoreboard. And the reason you don't play based on the scoreboard is because if you're ahead, you're going to let up. And if you're behind, you're going to give up. Okay. You play based on a standard. You play to a level of performance that depending on what you aspire to be. And so, there's the technical aspects of the game. And certainly you have to know the game, whether it's fundamentally or it's, structurally, situationally. And, so over time you learn those things, you grow in those things. But, what has transpired into probably some of the things you want to talk about is at the end of the day, you know, uh, you got to stimulate these players. You got to motivate them. If they're horses, you got to ride them. You got to give them a job. You got to make that job meaningful. And certainly we can all say, oh, well, yeah, but you're coaching kids who love to play. Well, yeah, they love to play till they get hit. You know, uh, we love to ride horses till we get bucked off. And, and so, you know, uh, I can transgress for a second because I can tell you this, and this might be a really meaningful statement to you. My high school coach's name was Frank Amato. I say was because he died at 94 a year ago. And so I had him in my life all the way till my 60th birthday. And but every big decision that I had in my life, because I grew up not knowing my father, I bounced off him. Whether it was getting married, taking a job at Michigan, taking a job at USC, wherever these places I've coached. But when I went to ask him about being a coach, he said to me something that I've said to every person that's asked me that question. He said, John, I think you'd be a great coach. I think that your heart's in the right place and your mind's in the right place to do this, but I want you to understand one thing. The term coach is a loaded term. It's a term of endearment. Like when you go into court and they say, all rise, and you're supposed to address the judge as your honor, that's a term of respect. That's a term that's earned. But, you're going to be the most significant person in a young person's life. If you do this for your whole life, thousands of times, and maybe as significant or more significant, even including their parents. And he said, I just want you to understand something, that one day you will hear somebody utter the term coach and it'll be directed at you. And you just got to understand that if you're going to do this long term, that this is a profession of, you are a sower and not a reaper. You are going to invest and invest till it hurts. And you may never see the seeds you plant grow, and maybe sometimes you will, but just understand that you're going to be a major difference in people's lives, and you can never tarnish that word. And so that's kind of where we sit.
Yeah, yeah, that's excellent.
You know?
How have you continued to develop yourself as a coach and ultimately a leader developer? You develop leaders.
Right.
How have you done that to yourself?
Well, first of all, I'm a football coach, so you got to be passionate about the game you're coaching. So, I mean, let me tell you, if you and I are going to go out in a parking lot and shoot marbles, I'm going to try to beat you into submission. So I have competitive fire, and I want to win, and I want to win all the time. So I don't think you can do this and not have that. Now, that doesn't always serve me well, because like when we play card game, like we play a partner card game like spades or whatever, and my wife's not counting cards, like I'll throw the cards across the room and then get reprimanded later because she's like, why do you got to be such a jerk? And she doesn't say jerk. Okay. And I'm like, I'm just telling you that if we're going to play, I expect you to be counting cards. Okay. Like I don't play for fun. I play to win, and it's fun when you win. Okay. So that's where it all starts. Now, the other thing is I read a book by Ray Kroc, the guy who owned the Padres and McDonald's. And, I have little things I've taken from everything I've consumed. And he said, if you're green, there's room to grow, but if you're ripe, all you can do is rot. Okay. I still will tell you, at college football season number 43, I am still reinventing myself. And like, I'm going to do a drill Sunday, 2 days from now, that I've never done before. Okay. And I have some things that I've been doing for 30 years, but I always feel like there's a better answer out there, and I'm always in search of it. So I still don't believe that I've coached my best season yet.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So I always think there's more.
How do you determine what does success look like for you? Is it just the W's and L's, or how do you determine success?
Well, I think that's we can paint that with a pretty broad stroke. I mean, I never have off of my mind the individual welfare and well-being of these players that I'm in charge of. So success is how we're building these young people. Like I tell them, hey, listen, everything I do, I believe in teaching life skills. I just had our equipment managers in here the other day, and I was showing them the new drill that I'm doing. And they're like, why are you doing this drill? And we've never seen it before. And I just told them, I was like, listen, guys, in your life, you've got to constantly be recreating yourself. Okay. So in other words, I didn't just tell these guys we were going to do this drill, but I'm telling them as young people, like, this is what you're getting out of this, like constantly recreate yourself, give them that message. Okay. But now I forgot your question. Hold on. Where were we going here?
Just how you develop yourself.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, but the fact of the matter is, I believe in a concept called do simple better. Okay. The greatest teachers, the greatest leaders, I think, have brought concept out of chaos. And I believe in bringing chaos to concept. Okay. So I will sit in my office and work 4, 5, 6, 7 hours to create a 10-minute meeting. Okay. Because I know I got 10 minutes with these players, and I know we're going to meet for 10 minutes, and they got to go out and execute what I just taught them. Okay. So, you take the time it takes, so it takes less time. Okay. Uh, and, and so I'm in a constant quest of finding ways to simplify and execute. Okay. Uh, and that's what I think effective teachers do, is they take the chaotic and they make it concept. And where people have, whether you call it the aha moment, where people go, oh yeah. Like whenever somebody looks at something, they go, oh yeah. That's always the sound of a breakthrough. Right. And so when we say, gosh, these kids, they just don't see it the way we see it, or they don't appreciate anything, you go, you're right. They don't. Because to see it the way we see it, or to appreciate it, you know what they have to have? Experience. Well, if they had experience, they wouldn't need us. So this is all about fueling the breakthrough.
What have you found? I got so many questions. What have you found is effective in connecting with and leading your student athletes, your football players?
Uh, Everything. Okay. So what do I mean by that? It may be using a video. It may be using an outside speaker. It may be using music. It may be using a walkthrough. It may be using another player to demonstrate. You got to do what it takes to create the picture. Because in coaching, or if you were to say in leadership, if you're really truly a coach, if you're really truly a teacher, if you're really truly a leader, you're going to spend the majority of your time frustrated. And the reason for the frustration is they don't see it the way you see it. Well, that's why you have a job. Okay. So you got to, by whatever means necessary, create that picture. So like one of the things, and I wrote a book called I Hate School, because that's what everybody always tells me. And I'm like, okay, you can hate school, but I'm going to change your mind. All right. Uh, you might hate school, but you better not hate education. Right. So, but one of the things I wrote in that book is that one of the universal laws of coaching is the neighbor always has to tell your kid to choke up on the bat. There's no way, it's biblical. There's no way you can be a prophet in your own town. There's no way that you're sharing airspace with these kids 24 hours a day. They're like, wait, I see this guy every day. There's no way he can know all that. Right. And so if you can embrace that idea that the neighbor always has to tell your kid to choke up on the bat, how do we get our point across? By whatever means necessary. I might have to have somebody else say it. They can't picture it. I might have to use video. They're lacking a little bit of juice or energy. I might have to use music. I mean, who knows? But the bottom line is we got to get them to perform. We got to stimulate them.
And how important is, in order to do that, to accomplish that, how important is your coaching staff, your
Yeah.
team of coaches?
Yeah. Well, there's a TED Talk out right now that talked about the 3 things that all great teams have in common. And one of the things is intellectual diversity. And intellectual diversity, it's not social or cultural diversity, it's intellectual diversity. But you have to be secure as a leader to put people around you with all kinds of different skill sets. We have an amazing coaching staff here. So we have 2 lifetime members, myself and a defense coordinator in the American Football Coaches Association, which means we've been in it more than 35 years. We also have 4 or 5 coaches that are in their first or second year of coaching. Okay. And then we have people in between. And we have a great mix of guys that are intellectually in different places. And let me tell you, the young coaches that are 28 years old, they're important, because they're like, coach, we got to use this song. The kids love that song. I guarantee you, I don't know how or why, but I am at the point where, okay, I'm irrelevant. I don't think I'd pick that song. Okay. Right. I'd pick Freebird by Leonard Skinner, but I don't think that's what they're listening to. Okay. Uh, so, uh, but we do have intellectual diversity. And the other thing is, to me, is a great idea has no rank. Okay. The breakthrough idea can come from the guy that's been coaching 3 months. Okay. It's being willing to build your staff that way, and then to create an environment where great ideas don't have rank, and collectively problem solve, and then we pick a direction and we go.
How do you create a winning environment or a winning culture among your team?
Good question. Well, here's what I believe. There's one thing that every high performing organization has at its core. And when I say at its core, it's not that it's number one, it's at its core, which means everything, like a heart. The term core, COR, in Latin means heart. Okay. All right. Because I have a book that I use called the Core Book, which is the core of who we are. All right. And at the core of every high performing organization is trust. And how do you create trust? Trust is the basic concept of making a promise and keeping it. As small as you asked me to do an interview and I said yes. And though we've gone back and forth on day and time, we did arrive at a point where we did it. But if you continually blew me off or I continually blew you off, we'd have no trust. You might be like, oh, that guy's an interesting guy or this or that. But at the end of the day, you'd have no trust. Okay. Trust is making a promise and keeping it, no matter how small that promise is. Like the meeting starts at 9 o'clock. I promise you, in this organization, if a meeting starts at 9 o'clock, it starts at 9 o'clock. And if you walk in at 9 o'clock, you're late. Okay. That's making a promise and keeping it. I'm going to start the meeting at 9. You're in the meeting ready to go. Okay. And on and on and on. Okay. But trust is manufactured over time through care, through competence, and being just very candid and straight up. Okay. But that's how, everything is going to run through the heart of trust. I mean, that's going to pump the blood. Okay. So whether you win by 20, you lose by 20, your ability to, repackage yourself the next week and go is based on trust. If you're in a work environment or whatever else, the high performing entities in a work environment, whether it's a forklift driver and a welder and a whatever, like over at Eddie Prefert's, they trust each other. Right? If you don't have it, you're never going to be a high performing team.
Yeah, that's great.
There's all kinds of external things kind of orbiting like the planet.
Right.
But the heart of it is and always will be trust.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. How do you, okay, and I'm sure in your 4 decades of coaching and leadership that you have had some seasons or phases where you've had a losing record, or like you're 0
We did last week.
Okay, okay,
Oh, we got beat by 50 last week in Las Vegas.
Wow. How do you reset the team to show up next week like it never happened? How do you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, great. Because adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. Right? Adversity always introduces a man and a team to itself. Right now, today, we're on a bye week. We were 3-1 going into the UNLV game, and we got beat 58-14. I mean, we got throttled. Okay, so we're right in the middle of what you're wanting to talk about. It's great to have a coach on that talks about his championship seasons and this and that, but let's talk about when you just got beat by 6 scores. Okay? All right. First of all, it's leadership. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of the people in your charge. Okay. Leadership is a lonely place. All right. Because sometimes you're going to have to take a stand on something that's not going right. Sometimes you're going to have to pick people up when they're down, right? Sometimes you're going to have to bring people back to earth when, maybe they're a little too confident. Okay. But it's a constant process of packing a snowball. Okay. So how do you bring them back? Well, the first thing is you better be equipped with some information. Okay. Like if you are not doing a lot of reading, a lot of listening, and a lot of talking to people constantly that are outside of what we do, then you got no tools when adversity hits. Okay. That's number one. Number two. So how do we approach it this week? It's like, okay, here's the deal. When you eat food, especially if you eat good food, what does your body do? It takes the food, it takes the nutrients out of the food, and it expels the rest. Number one and number two. You have two ways of getting rid of it. Okay. What would your body like if it didn't get rid of it? You'd be a toxic mess. Okay. And so even though you're eating good food, so whether in baseball you're in it at bat, whether you're in team roping and you get a run, or whether you're in college football and you play a play or a situation or a quarter or a game, you don't tie yourself to the score. You tie yourself to the information. The number one thing we did is we went and played a game. And in that game, there were about a half a dozen situations that occurred that made the game go that way. Now, let's go to those situations and let's pull those apart and let's ask ourselves, if it came up again, could we do better in that? What do we have to do better? And what you do is you use it like food and you extract the nutrients. You take the information. You're like, all right, guys, can we use that? Yes, we can. All right. And I make them literally flush it. The rest is gone. See, when you tie yourself to a time in team roping or a missed heel shot or a 58-14 score, you tie yourself to some emotional baggage that really doesn't do anything for you. Okay. But every time you decide to enter something, when you enter, you're entering for the experience. And if you win, great, but you got to take the information. And if you lose, you got to take the information. And over time, what winners are is they just keep packing that information to the point where it's like, tell you what, you better pack a lunch because I got all this. So you better have some answers because I got all this. And
Love it.
I don't think you just can't do this long term. You can't sign up for a fist fight and be shocked if you get knocked in the mouth. It's going to happen.
Right.
Okay. So the question is, I got knocked in the mouth. So what happened? All right. Well, I was thinking about this or that, or I dropped my guard, or I wasn't paying attention, and bam, there it was. Okay, good. You got a budget of 1 on that. You got a budget of 1. You will never land that shot again. And that's pretty much how you do it.
Yeah, that's great. What do you feel, Coach, in your 4-decade journey of coaching and leadership has had the biggest impact or effect on your growth as a coach?
That'd be a question that'd be funny. I could answer it right now, and then if you let me contemplate 2 days, I might answer it differently. But I can tell you this. My coaching career went from Iowa State as a graduate assistant to the University of Arizona as a graduate assistant to the University of Maine as my first full-time job for 1 year. I got hired back to the University of Arizona. I was there 2 years. I left over a very short-sighted decision to go to the University of Maryland. I was there 2 years and now I was married. We weren't very good. Got let go, went to Tulane in New Orleans. I was there 3 years. We weren't very good. And then I came to Fresno State. That sounds like a lot of movement. That all happened between 85 and 96. That all happened in 11 years. In 86, I came to Fresno, married, fired, because we weren't good at Tulane, and with a baby on the way. Now those babies are 29 and 28, and when I got here, I shared a value system with the head coach. Now, I was at Fresno State at the time. I wasn't at Alabama. I wasn't at Georgia. I wasn't at Texas. I was at Fresno State, who'd come off 3 losing seasons, okay, with a guy that was a great friend of mine that I believed in, and I believed in our value system, with one baby that was 1 and 1 baby on the way. And I stayed at Fresno State 14 seasons. And then when he got let go, I went to USC and I was there for 9. Okay. In between that, I went to Michigan with Jim Harbaugh for 1 season. Okay. So back to your question. What is it that shaped your thing, your career? Well, here's the thing. In college football, professional football, it's the entertainment business and it's very transient. You don't see coaches places more than 2 or 3 years. I've had basically 2 jobs for 27 years. So when I talk about player development, I've met 16-year-old kids that I recruited at 18 that I went to their weddings when they were 25. Okay. And my kids went from birth to college with 1 move in the same state, and they went to 19 bowl games with me. Okay. And my kids knew the players. So the thing that I think shaped me the most is if you change jobs every 2 or 3 years, your message is fresh and current. It's nice, but it's not like being married like my wife and I for 32 years. See, I've had to keep the relationship fresh and growing and going. So I think having to show up every day and having jobs for a decade or more, 2 of them, has really shaped me because you got to keep reinventing yourself.
So what are I love that. I love that, coach. What are some ways what are some ways what are some ways to reinvent oneself?
Yeah. Well, again, if you were to look around my office, I got 3 TV screens in here. I've got access to all the film in the Mountain West, the SEC, the Big 12, all the conferences. And Sun Tzu, okay, right? The Art of War. If you know the enemy but not yourself, for every victory you'll have a defeat. But if you know the enemy and yourself, you will not fear the result of 1,000 battles. Okay. It's a constant process of looking at who we are and what we're doing and opening yourself up to, like, do we have the answer? Or if somebody, like I said, I've never seen an idea so good I wouldn't steal it. Okay. And I mean, I took an idea from UNLV and their pregame routine, and I'm going to put it into mine. I'm like, that was brilliant. How, just a little thing they did with ball handling. But I just think you got to be on a constant quest for, is there something else, or could we be better? And, you and I are talking right here, and there might be something that I say that you're like, oh yeah, wow, that's great. And there's probably something you're going to say, I'll be like, man, I'm going to use that. But you got to have your antennas on all the time.
Love that. Love that. So one of my favorite sections in the Bible, Proverbs 1-4, those 4 chapters specifically talk about wisdom. And I think in chapter 2, it talks about pursuing wisdom as if it's hidden treasure. So I thought, okay, well, how would I pursue hidden treasure? Would I kind of bebop around, take my time? I would probably be like a dog on a bone, or like me on a taco, and like I would be after this hidden treasure.
Right.
And which is how we should pursue wisdom. Like, to your point, right? How aggressively are we pursuing wisdom? This is another thing I talk about on my podcast a lot, is like, how can we increase our, I call it this, coach, is relentless curiosity.
Yeah.
Relentless. How can I develop my curiosity to be world class?
Right.
And what impact would that have on me as a leader developer? Right. Because questions, the quality of the question reveals the quality of the answer.
Correct.
So weak
Correct.
sauce question, weak sauce answers.
Yeah.
Higher quality question, higher quality answers.
Right. Like,
So
for example, we say that all the time with our players is winners just ask better questions. Okay. So what does a loser ask? Why did we lose? Well, great. You're going to get answers. Okay. What I'm saying is when we take the information, what did we just get out of that game that we need to use to build ourselves bigger, faster, stronger? What do we got to do to get that other result? And then you get it, you know?
that's right. That's
So,
right.
but so I use this quote from Dr. Derek Bach, who was the president of Harvard for a long time. And let me tell you, I've developed some very interesting views over the years on education, especially higher education, because I believe in higher education. But like I always ask our players when they're freshmen, are you here for an education or a degree? And they're like, well, a degree. And I go, then quit wasting your time. Because if you're here for a degree, that degree guarantees you nothing. Okay? Guarantees you nothing, except for your resume can go in a pile that says you must have a degree. Okay? Because people that are here for an education, the degree will be a byproduct, but they handle education much differently. Now, by the same token, like I say, Dr. Derek Bach, if you think education's expensive, try ignorance. Okay? And ignorance means that you ignore what's out there. The problem I have is I have this quest for information that unfortunately I will never be able to take in before my death the amount that I want to. It's a big world out there, and I only know a small part of it, right? And so, but where does mine come from? I want to win. I just want to win. Whether it's winning is your profit and loss statement, it's your bottom line, it's, whatever else. Okay. Yeah, I want to win.
Yeah,
That's the
that's great.
driver.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's great. That's great. I think another thing that makes you powerful, coach, is like, because of your appetite to win, you also, I feel like it feeds your appetite to learn. And one of the concepts that I'm learning more about is a concept I saw recently called learning velocity. That a
Yeah.
skill in the future, well,
Mhm.
today and going forward, is how quickly can you learn as an individual
Mhm.
and as an organization, as a team. So
Right.
what is your learning velocity and what
Uh-huh.
is the learning velocity of your team, and
Yeah.
how can you increase that, right, so that you can be
Right.
more agile, right, as an organization, as a
Right.
team. And so it seems like that your desire to win feeds that desire to learn. And with
Right.
you modeling what right looks like to your players, they're not afraid to learn and grow either.
Right.
Right. It seems
And
like.
so learning, but when we talk learning is interesting because all these things have simple definitions. So when you say, what is learning? It's a change in behavior.
Yep.
Whether it's some information that gives you new perspective that makes you go, oh, yeah, that might be right. Okay. It's a change in behavior. What does it mean, as we say with the player, what does it mean to be coachable? It's not saying yes, sir, and no, sir. That's being polite. Being coachable means that you can take what I showed you and you can apply it and implement it and execute it, but you got to make the change. If you can't make the change, you're not coachable. So one
Wow.
of the phrases that's part of my own authorship is talent is the raw material, technique is the finished product. Matthew 25, we're all born with 1, 3, or 5 talents. It's now what do we do with them? Okay. It's what do we learn? It's how do we change, morph, etc. Okay. And so, okay. In the academic game plan program that I wrote, and in that book, I Hate School. One of the things is that I do when I speak in front of big audiences is we talk to adults and kids. They're all there together, and you say, how many parents here believe it's important to teach life skills? But I want a hand to go up if you believe it. Well, I mean, every hand goes up. And I said, okay, I got $100 right here for somebody that if you had your hand up, stand up. Okay. And they stand up. And I said, I got $100 here for anybody that's now standing that'll come up to this microphone and define life skills for me. And I never get a taker. And then I say, okay, well, it's then people, I say, okay, just put your hand up again. What do they say? Well, shaking hands, writing a check, holding a conversation. They name all these things. I said, great, those are individual life skills. Looking somebody in the eye. But what are life skills? And so, it had been around year 2000 or so. I spent 16 months writing a definition for life skills. It's 23 words. Any technique or tool or idea that develops into a usable necessity by connecting to or demonstrating its long-term purpose or usefulness. So then when you break it down in 4 sentences, it's any technique or tool or idea. Those are not ands, those are ors. Okay, a technique, a tool, an idea, like calling somebody or texting somebody. Well, you need a tool. You need to do that, a computer or a phone. That is an idea that we now have that we didn't have 20 years ago. But there's a certain thing that you would text somebody versus something you would call them about. Okay. Right. Okay. So, but at any technique or tool or idea that develops, what does that mean? That means it's increasing, it's getting better into, that's the metamorphosis, that's the change, right? Any technique, tool, or idea that develops into a usable necessity. Now I can't imagine life without it. I can't imagine life without that information, without that idea, without that tool. Okay, by connecting to or demonstrating, that assumes now we have a teacher or a coach that's building the connections or demonstrating its long-term purpose or usefulness. You never define a word with the word itself, but that's a way of saying life. Okay. And so I just gave you a small dissertation on the thing that I wrote, but that's it in a nutshell. And that's what I believe in my position a coach has to do, is it is incumbent upon me that there is a bigger world outside of this game of football. Now, granted, I want to win, but at West Point, there is a bronze sign on the football field from General MacArthur that says, upon the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on future days will bring future victories. That's where my head's at, is this game's important because I'm teaching you how to be a winner. I'm teaching you how to handle losing. I'm teaching you how to take the information. Okay. But just like a little tiger cub playing little games, at some point, you're going to be a hunter. At some point, you're going to be able to do this for yourself. At some point, and so this football thing was important. So that's kind of where I'm at on it all.
That's awesome, Coach. Okay, wrapping up here, Coach. What resources? So tell us what resources that you have. How do we find your book? I Hate School. How do we find any other content that you've created?
Well, I have a program called Academic Game Plan, which is I published in '99, and it's on the internet at academicgameplan.com. And it's basically what happened is I just started realizing, coaching these football players, that it's like they hate school. Okay, well, maybe nobody's ever built it to be a valuable thing in your life. Okay. So it's my job to change your mind. And so if I can give you some techniques, tools, and ideas that all of a sudden create value in your life, maybe we can make it mean something. Okay. But so there's that. And then the name of the book, it's on Amazon, called I Hate School. And the reason I did that is because when I recruit all these kids, they're like, Coach, I don't really like school. I just want to play football. Okay, great. But this is college football, not football college. So you're going to go to college. So you want to hate 4 years, or you want to get something out of it. Okay. And really the best teachers change our minds. That's what education is you change people's minds. I don't think you need a college degree to be educated. But I do think you have to look at the world around you, and you are going to be you're going to become what you consume. So you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You show me what you read, and I'm going to show you what you believe. Okay. So you got to be consuming all the time. You got to be careful about what you consume. But you've got to be consuming all the time, right? You've got to always be putting fuel in your car. And I'm going to tell you something. I have gotten some of the greatest things from the most random places. But like I said, there's never been an idea so good I wouldn't copy it. You know, being a person who loves horses and horsemanship has shaped my coaching career in so many ways that only another horseman could appreciate. But it's like when you're sitting there dealing with a 1,200-pound hairy bag of fear that doesn't speak English, that's this big, physically imposing animal that really just wants to run. How is that different from a 6'6", 320-pound freshman offensive lineman who's really a baby in a man's body? He's really just a colt. He really doesn't have any foundation or any cues or any ground manners. It's all got to be taught. Okay. But horsemanship has taught me patience. Horsemanship has taught me communication. Horsemanship has taught me impatience. And so, I mean, some of my best teachers have been cowboys. Like a guy like Chris Cox, gotten amazing, things from him. So, it kind of blows my mind that I'm even being interviewed on some leadership podcast because, like, I mean, I don't know. I suppose these things all apply, but all I've worried about is being a good husband, good father, and good coach, and trying to consume as much as I can to be that, So, that puts us, I guess, where we are.
Right. Yes, sir. Coach, this has been fire. Thanks a million, man. This
Yeah.
is incredible.
We can do it whenever you want. I mean, I'm
okay.
Random stream of consciousness now. Okay.
Yes, sir. This has been amazing, Coach. I really, really appreciate you taking the time in the height of your season. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the connection. And if you're ever back in Texas, please.
Oh, I'll
let's
be
get
back
together.
there. I'll be
take
back
you to
there. I'll
lunch.
check out your ZZ Top beard. Yeah. There you go. Right. The Grange. Okay. But yeah. So let me ask you this question.
Yes, sir.
What have you been able to take out of this?
Oh man. So the bottom line up front is you've got, with 4 decades of leadership, I love your concept of keeping things simple.
Yeah.
Sometimes my brain, I like to really, break things apart, which sometimes can complicate things, but I love the concept of like keeping things simple because that's easier, because I'm not a super big brain guy. I have, I tell people all the time I graduated at the top, bottom third of my class at West Point.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right. Because I was not a super smart guy. So I love that concept of kind of keeping things simple. The next thing I loved is how for 4+ decades, you have modeled what it looks like to be a lifelong learner.
Right.
And you have, again, Proverbs 1-4, you have been pursuing wisdom in whatever shape, form that comes. Because in fact, I was just looking this up the other day. 1 Kings, I think it's chapter 19. God told Elijah, go stand up in the rocks, and I'm gonna swing by and we'll chat. And so he sent the fire came through. God wasn't in the fire. Then he sent a big earthquake. God wasn't in the earthquake. Then God sent something else. It wasn't in the
Flood.
And then there was a whisper,
Mm-hmm.
and God was in the whisper.
Mm.
And that concept, like, hey, God can speak to us in whatever vehicle he wants to speak to us in. But to your point, we just got to keep our ears tuned into learning.
Right. Keep your antennas on.
You got to keep your antennas on, right? Because if not, God could be trying to teach you something through the littlest thing that you're not even thinking about. And that was God whispering to you,
right?
Hey, McFly, this is a point I'm trying to get you to understand,
Yeah.
but you're not switched on to learning mode, right? So
Right.
that was another big thing that I got also. And then the other thing I think, I guess the last thing is the which I also love this concept, is the constant pursuit of mastery, right? And growth. You
Yeah.
know, Matthew 25:14-30, like you said, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible section, I call it the entrepreneur chapter. God's given us all talents. Here's the thing that I did, coach, for much of my life is I took the talents that God gave me. So I feel like God's given me 5 talents, but I acted like the one talent guy because
Oh,
I was a people pleaser addict, and I buried all my gifts in the backyard because I
yeah.
was afraid of what other people would say. And God
Right.
finally got to me in my thick knucklehead skull and said, McFly, the gifts I've given you are not for you. They're for
Right.
other people.
For other people.
That's exactly right.
Right. And so I feel the same way. So, not that we went into this to have, some faith-based conversation, and I'm really careful about how I speak about it and share that because I'm in a very diverse environment. Okay. But I will give you one thing. Okay. Enthusiasm. The crowd was so enthusiastic. But do you know what enthusiasm really means? The etymology of the word is en theos. En, the prefix, means filled with, and theos is the Spirit of God. And so there was a way that these early Christians acted, and it was like, why are they so happy, energetic, people, all the time? They're so enthusiastic. Well, it became a descriptor of these happy, well-adjusted people that believe that there's a positive end, an outcome to this life that we're living, right? And so there's 9 words on my board over here that you'll never be able to see, but they're up there on the board right here. I got all these names of these things I'm doing with those different players, and then up there, and it basically says this: chaos to concept, process to product, and form follows function. Okay. The great teacher doesn't show the chaos, they show the concept. Okay. Process to product. That means now when we got it boiled down, this is why we do what we do in the order that we do. And if we do, it's going to yield this. Okay. And why is it in this form? Because the function we need it to have. Why is hay in a 100-pound bale? Well, because that's about as big as you can make it for a human to lift it. Okay. And it's a lot better in a square bale with 3 strings on it than it is loose. Okay. Form follows function. And so I've got all these little things that I'm on a constant quest for simplicity, because simplicity is dynamic. But what were parables? They're real simple, like, oh, I can see myself in that story. Right? And so the most dynamic pieces of instruction or leadership are always the simplest, because it's like, yeah, gosh, boy, I see that. Boy, that's consumable. Man, I could use that. Right? Do simple better. And one of the things that I believe in is when the assignment becomes second nature, you can maximize effort and efficiency. Right? If players say, oh, I'm thinking too much. No, you're thinking when you're supposed to be playing. Right? So we boil it down to these things. And what helps people play fast is that they're laser focused, on something. So, you take light that's cascading through a window and you put your hand on the windowsill would feel warm. But if I took that same light, that very same light, and I put it through a magnifying glass and focused it to a real fine point, that same exact light that's making the windowsill feel warm would start a leaf on fire. What is a laser? Light amplification of stimulated emission of radiation. It's light so concentrated it can cut steel. That's good coaching to me. That's doing simple better. Is dialing people in to where it's like, oh, that's all I got to do. Yep. That's all I got to do. I can do that. All right, let's go play.
Awesome, coach. Man, this was amazing.
All right,
Totally
good.
appreciate you, coach. This was
You bet.
incredible.
You
Thanks a
bet.
million. I'm gonna tell Eddie. I'm gonna let Eddie know that maybe I'll send him the episode so he can listen to it.
Oh, great. Yeah, we'll see if he wants to listen to the prophet. Okay. But yeah. But
Great. Thank you, coach.
anytime you want to do it, I'm
Okay.
happy to do it. And if there's
Okay.
an idea that's usable, then let's by all means share it.
Awesome. Awesome. Great, coach. Thanks a million, sir. Have a great weekend.
Okay. All right, Noble.
Okay. Bye-bye.